Good morning, everybody. My name is David McLeod, your Life Mastery Coach, and one of the hosts of the Life Mastery TV series, which we've been doing now for, nearly 2 years. I'm so excited about that. And today we're doing episode 86. We're going to be talking about a very dear subject that is close to my heart for sure, and I know it's close to Tommy's heart too. But before we go into that, I'm just going to introduce my good friend and my good buddy. Tommy, welcome. Good to see you again. I missed you last week.
And David, thanks for the warm welcome. And yeah, I hope you guys had a nice Thanksgiving session last week with Junie. So here we are today, and we're talking about something that will make people uncomfortable, many of us, because I know we've talked about this before, that at least in my lifetime, the people that were around me and that I learned from didn't teach me a lot about this topic, didn't teach me a lot about my emotions in general, because they didn't know. And so today we're talking about intimacy. And as you so clearly put, it's not about sex, right? A lot of times that word comes out and people think, oh, sexual intimacy. That's where the ego mind, is trained to go with this word. But we're talking about something much deeper and much more real and much more true about ourselves today. So let's see where it takes us, man.
Yeah, well, that's why we chose the title, Into Me You See, which I think is an accurate description of what intimacy really is all about. And I remember hearing that phrase many, many years ago. I don't remember where I heard it originally. I think it may have been Neil Donald Walsh. I'm not 100% sure of that. But I remember when I heard it, I thought, oh, so that's what intimacy is. And it just suddenly, everything just suddenly made sense to me. It really had nothing to do with sex at all. Although for sure, in order to be involved in sexual activity, usually some level of intimacy is required to get there, to that place first. Not always, of course, but usually. But what I've noticed is just being seen, just having someone really get me, look inside, understand me, and maybe resonate with some of the stuff that's going on inside me, so that I can maybe get to see a little bit about them as well. That is what we're talking about. It's an amazing, powerful, wonderful exchange of energy that just kind of happens when I choose to be vulnerable enough to show my heart to somebody. And that's really what we're talking about here today.
Yeah, we definitely are. So it's not a physical intimacy. It's not a physical connection. It's not even a mental connection. We're talking about opening up. You're talking about opening your heart, being vulnerable or words. And there's those words that we're kind of taught, the vulnerable. That means, oh my gosh, you're vulnerable to attack, or you're vulnerable to be hurt, or you're vulnerable to be taken advantage of, right? So in our emotionless society, all those barriers are naturally put up. Don't open yourself up, you'll get hurt. And then we see that when we do open ourselves up, maybe somebody does hurt us, or we do get taken advantage of. Then, oh, that just proves it. That just proves it. I got to close up again. Shut up. And just not be vulnerable and don't open up. Yep. And there's part of that, but actually that vulnerability and that getting hurt is all ego stuff. And so when we get beyond the ego stuff of my feelings got hurt, or, oh, that bothers me, or, oh, I'm right and you're wrong, all that ego noise and nonsense, when we get beyond that, that's when opening up and being intimate and connecting soul to soul, spirit to spirit, heart to heart, that's where the power comes from, David. And that's what I think we're getting to, right? That's what the Soul Talk guys do, and that's what we talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally agree with what you're saying around the whole ego thing. I think you're absolutely right. If I judge that I'm getting hurt, really that's my ego making up some kind of a story about this other person who is hurting me in some way. And in reality, they're just being themselves. They're just being as honest and as true as they can possibly be in that moment. And they may as well be very guarded and protected. And so whatever it is they're saying or doing or thinking or feeling or whatever, it's coming through the filter of their ego too. And so consequently, my ego and their ego are kind of interacting while we're busy trying to make a heart connection. And so there is risk of getting hurt when that kind of dynamic comes into play. And so what I think you and I are talking about here is trying to find a way of just getting the ego, kind of put it off to the side, and just let it have its own little nap over there in the corner, like a little baby in a crib. And then meanwhile, we can connect heart to heart with one another. It sounds real simple, and in fact, it is simple. It's just not that easy. And that's the part that we want to work on today, is finding a way to make a little more ease so that you can experience that intimacy, that into me you see, a little more easily.
Yeah, I mean, I just started experiencing this consciously maybe just a couple of years ago. But maybe around the same time you and I were starting the show and everything, is that there were certain people in my life that I felt like I could open up to more and more, and open up to at a deeper and deeper level. So this isn't for every relationship in your life. This isn't something you go out there necessarily and you practice on your first tier relationships right away with your mom or your dad or your sister, or your brother, your kids. But this is a gradual opening, and it is very loving and very powerful and very empowering. And we've talked about trust before, and every time I've opened up to anybody at this level who is also ready to open up at this level, I've, like you say it, David, all the time, I've never been judged. I've never been, looked down upon, because you're talking to somebody who's already beyond that judgment part of themselves. We're getting beyond the judge and the judger, and just opening up. So we do want to talk a little bit about, this isn't necessarily for every relationship in your life. Right?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. I think that, while we need to kind of be, I don't like to use the word protective of ourselves, I think there's a way in which discernment comes into play. Not everybody is at the same level of awareness that you are. Not everybody is at that same level of ability to be able to open themselves up. And they may be much more defended than you are. And so consequently, if you open up to them, they may just see this as an opportunity to take advantage of you, because they're still stuck in their ego mind. So Tommy's absolutely right here. Don't just start doing this with everybody you meet. Although I think what happens is, after a period of time, you will get so good at this that you will be able to do it with pretty much everyone you meet. And no matter how they respond, you're not going to take on their darts. You're not going to take on their arrows. You're going to find a way of just reflecting it back as pure love to them. And that's what we're all about here, is learning how to do that. And it isn't a snap of the fingers and you're done kind of thing. It's not a wave of a magic wand. It's something that you develop over a period of time. It's like, becoming a bodybuilder. You don't start off from a 98-pound weakling to a full-blown bodybuilder and all of a sudden it's done. Although some people think that you can do it with, various kinds of supplements. But the real truth is, you have to work those muscles. You have to practice. You have to get good at it. And you have to stretch too. So those are important things to keep in mind.
Yeah, and so going back to when I first started practicing this actively, it was difficult for me. It was like I was speaking a different language sometimes to somebody, and it was with a very, a friend, like there was times with you, David, when we had these types of conversations, and there was other people who have been on this on the show with us, and other people that I know, and I would almost feel like scared, like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? How dare I talk like this? What am I? And my ego mind was like tread carefully, be careful, look out. All these warning signals were going off, but I was like, no, I'm getting through this. And even to the point of, I was talking to a coach once, and he said, hey, if it's true that we go through reincarnations and we go through past lives, and that we're here at this point in this lifetime as an evolving human being, there's probably been times in past lives, maybe, and this is talking to me, you're talking to me, he said, maybe times in past lives where this kind of behavior was really not only not accepted in society, but punishable by death or something. Absolutely. And so there might have been past lives where you spoke out in this way and lost a life because of it, or got stoned because of it, or not smoking stoned, but rock stoned. And so that resonated with me too. And I'm like, okay. But he goes, we're in a place, we're in a planet, we're in a time in history right now where this is acceptable, and you're not going to get stoned or killed or become a martyr like may have happened in your past. So but I had to get over that trepidation, because it is a different way of communicating and a different way of interacting.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And that certainly resonates for me. I mean, even even if we discount the idea of reincarnation, just in this life alone, there have been times when, you know, I have revealed myself and I've been stoned for it, you know, punished for it. I remember having interactions with my mother, who was not really comfortable with me sharing all of what was going on for me. And so she would, you know, use her words. She didn't physically stone me by any stretch of the imagination, but she had a way of shutting me down very quickly with her words. If she didn't like the way I was showing up, man, I knew. Sometimes it was just a look, you know. It didn't take more than just a look, and I knew, uh-oh, that's not happy for mom. And so I just learned over time, you know, to protect myself. And I'm sure all of us have had people in our lives, in this life, where that has happened. And as you say, maybe this has happened in past lives where the consequences were even much more severe than that. So thank you for bringing that up. That's a really good point.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing us into this life, because you're absolutely right. Yeah. Look, we're in an evolving human society right now. We're evolving consciously in consciousness. That's just what's going on. Some of us are awake and evolving. Some of us are still in the old ways and you know, stuck in old patterns and old belief systems and old sufferings, and don't even realize there is any such thing as an awakening. Don't even realize there is such a thing as emotional intelligence and evolvement and mindfulness. So as a case of this evolving, you just step back in time a little bit. There were even fewer people evolved, and then, you know, generations